The Fukuoka Champions League just concluded in Japan, where 7,000 players got together to compete in our new post-rotation format for the Pokemon TCG. We've had City League results up until this point, which are smaller tournaments like League Challenges or League Cups, but 7,000 players competing for the title of Fukuoka Champions League champion. This is by far the biggest piece of data that we have to go off of so far for post-rotation. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving my top 5 takeaways from this massive event. My first takeaway is going to sting for some people. Dragapult EX is still really legit, but Mega Lucario EX is fraudulent. Coming into this event, I would have told you that Dragapult EX and Mega Lucario were the top 2 decks in our post-rotation format. Dragapult didn't really lose anything. It just gained the fact that its biggest enemy, Gardevoir EX, rotated out of standard. So now Dragapult EX gets to exist as this super consistent, powerful archetype that doesn't have a built-in weakness, being a dragon-type Pokemon, and just continues dominating as it did in our previous format. It got 3rd place overall, as well as 4 placements in the top 16. I think it's easily a top 3 deck, if not the best deck in our post-rotation format. But Mega Lucario, that deck sucks. Now, a lot of people, myself included, had high hopes for Mega Lucario. I thought it was going to be the 2nd best deck in the format, but I did not take into consideration that many decks were going to start playing Lily's Clefairy EX to hit Dragapults for weakness, and Lucario just gets caught in those strays. And Mega Lucario is a 3 prize Pokemon. It cannot afford to be getting one-hit KO'd. It can't get dumpstered like that. You lose half the prize cards of the game when you do. So my beef with Mega Lucario is that it just doesn't stand up to scrutiny. It's not flexible enough to be able to deal with the fact that people might be trying to counter it. If it ever gets hit by strays like it did at Fukuoka, half of the top 16 decks at Fukuoka were running Lily's Clefairy EX because it one-hit KOs both Mega Lucario and Dragapult EX. Or if people decide to start just teching for Mega Lucario outright, it will collapse. Mega Lucario was the 2nd most represented deck in Day 2 of the Champions League with a 13% meta share, and it converted that into 2 top 16 placements, which is not great. Rocket's Mewtwo EX also had 2 placements in the top 16, and I don't think that Rocket's Mewtwo EX is actually a legitimate deck. If you take a look at the lists, it's literally just the same exact deck that we were all trying to play nearly a year ago. The only thing that it has going for it is that it can one-hit KO both Dragapult and Lucario, and I really don't expect Lucario to be a meta mainstay. I think Mega Lucario kind of exists in a similar spot that it did last format. It's like a fine B or C tier deck, but it is not a top deck in our post-rotation format. Takeaway number 2 is that Crispin is him. 11 of the top 16 decks at Fukuoka were running Crispin, many of them with 3 or even 4 Crispin in the list, including the winning deck Mega Kangaskhan EX Mega Absol. And I did not expect this deck to work post-rotation with TM Turbo Energize rotating out of format. But here we are. Crispin, Energy Switch, Teal Mask Ogerpon, and it all works. This is a really neat deck enabled by Crispin and Energy Switch. You could just accelerate energy into play and move all of those energy around with 4 copies of Energy Switch. And I think that this is the kind of thing that we're going to see a lot more of in our post-rotation format. We also saw Dragapult decks playing Crispin, which can afford it because you've got Dracloak to help you draw cards, and you're playing Unfair Stamp now, so you don't have that Neo Upper energy, so Crispin helps you get those extra energy attachments into play. Also, Crispin just allows you to get those bonus energy attachments onto Monkey Dory, and Monkey Dory is still as big as ever post-rotation. So Crispin certainly helps to enable that play as well. Raging Bolt EX may have lost access to Professor Sada's Vitality with rotation, but persists solely because of Crispin earning a top 4 and top 16 placement at the Champions League. And then Terra Box decks that play the Noctowl engine still
love Crispin as a way to accelerate energy onto various big basic Pokemon. So Crispin, 11 out of the top 16 decks. That is just a huge percentage of the top 16 decks running this card, and I expect to see a lot of Crispin plays in the upcoming months. Before I get to the next one, I want to give a quick shout out to my channel sponsor, Dragon Shield. Dragon Shield just added 5 brilliant new colors to their dual sleeve lineup: Apple Green, Nebula, Sky Blue, Crimson, and Yellow, all featuring a silver inner lining. Dual sleeves are completely opaque, shuffle smooth, and protect your favorite decks in style. My favorites are the new Nebula in silver, and I think they look great on my Dragapult EX deck. Pick up a case of your favorite dual sleeves today at dragonshield.com and use code TrickyJim at checkout for 5% off your order. Again, that's dragonshield.com for all the best sleeves and accessories. And don't forget to use code TrickyJim at checkout for 5% off your order. Huge thank you to Dragon Shield for being a continued sponsor of the channel. Hand Disruption isn't totally dead with Iono rotating, as Unfair Stamp is the new premier A-Spec in competitive decks. Half of the top 16 decks at Fukuoka were running Unfair Stamp, and it makes sense when you look at the other Hand Disruption options like Judge or Rocket's Archer or Harlequin. Unfair Stamp is by far the most powerful option. Yes, you can only play it once, but a lot of times that's all you need is just that one turn to set your opponent to a low hand size to try and steal a comeback. Unfair Stamp is just a crazy A-Spec and can win games at any point in the match. Anytime your opponent takes a knockout, you can just set your opponent to 2 cards and you might just win off of that. So it's no wonder that it's seeing a lot of play, and I fully expect it to continue being the most popular A-Spec card until a different hand disruptor gets printed. Teal Mask Ogerpon EX is looking real hot right now, with 6 out of the top 16 decks at Fukuoka running it, including both finalist lists. Teal Mask is just an incredibly versatile and powerful card, and I was really impressed by the different ways it was being utilized in the top 16 decks from Fukuoka. The winning list used it as an extra way to juice energy into play. Again, with those 4 copies of Energy Switch, you can use Teal Dance and then Energy Switch Energy Off in order to power up your Mega Kangaskhan, or even just get a 3rd energy onto your Mega Absol in order to attack. It also takes one-hit KOs on Enzoric EX and Marnie's Grimmsnarl EX, which together made up 14% of Day 2 of the Champions League. Getting those one-hit KOs is crucial. Those are 2 very meta-relevant decks, and it's a Terra Pokemon. So it enables Area 0 Underdepths, which we saw the winning list use to be able to expand the bench to 8. It also enables Noctowl's Jewel Seeker ability in those Terra Box decks, and when you combine Teal Mask with Meganium and its Wild Growth ability, you can one-hit KO anything, which is what we saw going on in the 2nd place list, Teal Mask Ogerpon, Meganium, and Arboliva EX, if you can believe it. So yeah, I might be off the Mega Lucario bandwagon post-rotation, but I'm all aboard the Teal Mask train. And for my final takeaway, I want to talk a little bit about the single prize decks post-rotation. Single prize decks have had a pretty rough go in the Pokemon TCG for a while. I mean, there was Lost Box, which sometimes played EX Pokemon, but by and large, single prize decks have not really been in vogue in competitive play for a while. There was like the Reggies, right? Which were almost a thing, but they've mostly been a joke. And that wasn't necessarily always the case, but I do have higher hopes for single prize decks in the months ahead. We had 2 make top 8 at Fukuoka, which is pretty solid. Rocket's Honchkrow, top 8, and Crustle. Crustle has kind of just been that deck that's kind of annoying and continues to show up, but people don't really take it seriously. I don't really take it seriously, and the more we don't take it seriously, the more it'll continue to just pop up here and there. I don't really think it's that great of a deck, but it's in top 8, so there it is. And Rocket's Honchkrow getting a top 8 finish is huge. That deck is pretty unproven on a large scale, and I know a lot of players are really interested in whether or not it's legit, I've spent some time playing it. It is weak to late game hand disruption. That's something that it really doesn't like. So in our current standard format, that's one of the major things holding it back. And I think in post rotation, if people are playing unfair stamp at the end of the game when you need to try and orchestrate a game-winning knockout, that is kind of gonna be its Achilles heel. But the deck does have all of the tools it needs to be legitimate. It could take big one-hit knockouts with single prize Pokemon. It's got a nice looking draw engine, and it's got bench protection from Dragapult, which is also really nice. Even though it didn't top 16, I still can't shake the hope that I have for Alakazam. That deck seems really powerful. Daiichi Shimada chose to play it, and I really respect him as a top player in the Pokemon TCG. He had a really unique take on it as well, playing the Genesect that can stop your opponent's ace specs from working if you have a tool card attached to it. He was also playing Lucky Helmets to help draw extra cards and increase his hand size so that he could take big knockouts with Alakazam. So I have my eyes on Rocket Honchkrow and Alakazam as the two best single prize decks. I think that the Rocket's Honchkrow list kind of builds itself. There's not a ton of room for creativity there because you just have to play all of the Honchkrow and all of the Rocket supporters. You just have to, right? And you have to play the 4 Rocket Stadium. I mean, it kind of just builds itself. But the Alakazam deck, I think, has a lot of space to continue to get tweaked and may improve over the next couple months as players kind of figure out how to navigate the Alakazam deck in our upcoming format. So I have high hopes for single prize decks. They did top 8 the Champions League, which kind of confirms my hopes and aspirations for them, but I expect even bigger things. And that does it for my 5 takeaways from the Fukuoka Champions League. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We've got a lot of really cool Pokemon content on the way this month. On Saturday, March 28th, we're hosting a post-rotation standard 3K. Going to be the first major cash event in the United States, showing off our post-rotation format. And on Sunday, March 29th, we've got a $3,000 cash Gym Leader Challenge tournament, also featuring the newest cards from Perfect Order. Going to be a great time, so mark your calendars. Signups are in the description below at fullgripgames.com. Y'all take it easy and have a good one. See ya.